morning. We find ourselves down on the fields of Bannockburn once again, and with me this morning is Max Muir from Robert the Bruce Genius of Bannockburn. And today we're going to ask one of the big questions of any of the great battles that took place throughout Europe, but particularly Bannockburn.
It's great to be back here, Mark, and the first thing that strikes you is the scale of this battle.
Yeah.
The scale of this battle. We reckon the English forces were 20,000+ strong, and that's excluding what comes with an army. Yeah. That's excluding the Fletchers, the cooks, the hangers-on, the squires, and the other forces. 2,500 heavy horse in front. We're actually standing in what was the English camp.
That's right. Yep. And the Scots would have come from the south towards them here, across a front about 830 yards wide. So that would have been quite a confrontation when they met there.
Yes, we have the Bannockburn and the Pell Stream. So that is approximately at its shortest point, half a mile, 831 yards to be precise. And the English had a great force. It was even said that no greater force had ever left England in its time. And the key to this battle was they had the mass, but they didn't have the room to operate. And Bruce's tactics were to advance upon the English camp and deny them the room to operate.
And of course, with that many numbers, 20,000 on the English side, perhaps 10,000 on the Scots, one would expect there's going to be heavy casualties. And that's what we're going to look at today. Where are the bodies of Bannockburn?
Where are the dead? John Barber mentions plural pits. And there had to be, because the battlefield is on such a large scale. Even though this is the English camp and this is the front line of the initial battle, this battle spread once the rout took place.
Absolutely. Shall we have a look around the battlefield?
Let's do that.
Super. So here we are, Max. This would have been the front line of the battlefield. And effectively, 20,000 on the English side, 10,000 on the Scottish side. This was some clash, wasn't it?
This was amazing. We are roughly from where the Scots first advanced, about 100 metres or so, just down there. And the Scots would have pressed in here. Now, that would have taken some time because the English were mostly caught unawares. And there was great confusion in the camp. The Scots have held the line and they have pressed forward. It would have been terrible. The first nightly charge, what's imperative for the Scots is that they kill the horses.
Yeah.
So they have to come and set these pikes into the ground. The butts have to go into the ground. Yeah. They have to absorb that cavalry charge. That is crucial, that the Scots can hold that line.
Absolute carnage. They had to stop the cavalry, because if they got through and in behind the Scots, it could have been game over. But they had to hold that line, and they did so. And regrettably for the horses, they were in the front line. It would have been carnage as they were taken out.
The chroniclers speak about the great screams of the great destriers. And of course the knights, once the horse goes down, they're in heavy plate armour. Some would not have been entirely armoured either. They were not ready. But the Scots, they said it was like penetrating a thick set hedge.
That's right.
So the Scots were very prepared to hold that line. A lot of preparation had gone into this, a lot of discipline had gone into this. And the English chroniclers say that they were ready for battle the next day, but all of a sudden the Scots were very close at hand. So they had the element of surprise. Bruce had crept up on them.
And on foot, which perhaps the English did not expect.
Well, the chroniclers also mentioned that they mounted in great alarm, but they were not accustomed to fight on foot.
That's right.
And it took foot soldiers. But when you think of the mass of the Scottish line from the Bannockburn to the Pell Stream, no horses were able to break through that line.
No.
If they were, they could have gotten through so far, or perhaps all the way through and recharged from the rear. Yeah. That would have been carnage for the Scots. They had to hold that line. And you are talking about, with that jamming, no movement for a while, possibly 2 to 3 very low momentum cavalry charges. You're talking close quarter killing.
Absolutely. And in that scenario, there is no chivalry shown on the battlefield, is there? It is brutal, and these guys are getting taken out. The Scots are fighting for their freedom, the English are fighting for conquest, none willing to give ground, so there was no chivalry going on here. This was a brutal affair.
Chivalry was not present on this day, and it certainly was not part of Bruce's tactics. And this was about decimating your enemy. They had to be destroyed. Yes, the English likely had the greater force. There is a lot of debate on Scots numbers, but for the Scots to hold that 830-yard line, they had to be at least 10 to 15 men deep to absorb all that.
Absolutely. And of course, once they started to move forward, once they got that charge on that you talked about, and the English were pressed back, they would have moved back into the battlefield. Shall we go and have a look at some of the other areas?
Let's do that.
So here we are, Max, we're up on top of the knoll down on the Cashland, and this would have been a great vista for the English to look across the battlefield, and Edward must have seen quite a sight from up here.
This is King Edward's view with his commanders. The chroniclers tell us that he can see over the heads of his entire army. So the Scots that are out there, roughly where that hedge is now, he's seen an entire front line. He's seen the front line of his heavy cavalry crash against the front line of the Scots, and where that carnage is taking place. The cry of the horses, the cry of the wounded, the great jamming that's taking place, and he's watching his knights and those great destriers go down.
And that would have taken place over a 830-yard front, a front of densely packed spearmen coming towards the English, because the Scots were armed with hand axe and spear.
Spears and small daggers as well. Those spears would have been put straight into the belly of those great war horses. It's essential that they go down, because if those horses are wounded and their legs are thrashing around, they're going to break the legs of that Scots front line. So that is congested there. And that's where the brutality begins. The knights are unhorsed, the visors are lifted, or any weak point or holes within the armour, they're put to death there and then.
And as hard as the English tried to push forward, the Scots stood steadfast. They did not budge an inch, and they pressed, they applied the pressure, didn't they? And the English could not get in behind them.
They held that line, and little by little, foot by foot, they got over those carcasses, over the dead and dying, and they pressed their advantage forward. It must have been close. King Edward must have possibly even seen Bruce in the eye. They would certainly have seen each other before Edward decided that all was lost. We have to remember that there are around 17,000 infantry behind the heavy cavalry. Now, the pressure that they were causing was immense. The cavalry could not move forward, backwards, or to the side. They are sitting ducks where they stand. It's only when they understood what was happening that the infantry retreat, they're in flight, and the rout starts to take place.
And it's hard to describe the cacophony of sound that would have taken place here. The dead and dying horses gutted with the spears, the men that have gone down, the blood and gore that surrounded the ground. This was not a pleasant place to be that day.
Battle's a terrible thing, and we're in an age where the majority of us have not experienced it. But when you have all those insides, both animal and human, lying over the ground, many of them dead and dying, the noise must have been deafening. But the sheer adrenaline of battle, of surviving, but also the sense of victory over your enemy. Terrible doesn't even begin to describe the brutality of medieval warfare.
And of course that's what we're here to discuss today, the dead and the dying, because at this initial confrontation there would have been quite a high casualty rate. So we've got lots, the day after the battle, we've got lots of dead bodies here scattered across this part of the field.
Once the rout started to take place, the battle shifts. and many dead and dying are left on the field. They would have been getting finished off with someone. Edward's already left the field, and the Scots are in hot pursuit of the enemy. There would have been a burial pit here the very next day. It makes no sense to carry them any distance. That's the first of the burial pits that we'll go and look at.
And that would have been deep under the ground here, in front of the pond. Shall we go and have a look at that?
Let's take a look.
So here we are, Max, down on the carse in the area of the pond. And this would have been the front line of battle. This would have been a killing ground for the initial contact between the two armies. Lots of people dead here.
After the battle shifted, once the rout took place and the English army are in flight, this is essentially your front line. You have the front line of chargers that were killed, the line after that, probably about 3 charges before they dispersed. But we are walking on the killing grounds. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It might even be, as far as pits go, between here and the knoll, but this would be my own personal favourite area.
So in the aftermath of the battle, the next day when they came down here, bodies, regular troops, lords, because they were a heavy cavalry, they're all mixed down here, aren't they?
They're all mixed.
How were they divided up? How were they dealt with when they were buried?
Bruce himself would have been walking this battlefield, but no one knew the individuals in the elite part of the English army like Bruce did. He was brothers to them at one point. So he would have walked among the dead here. He would have pointed out Robert Clifford, son of John Comyn. Some would have had their emblems on. But we know that Gloucester, Bruce openly wept over Gloucester. The elite knights would have been taken off the battlefield. Even dead bodies can be ransomed. They want the body returned. Gloucester's body was returned. Clifford's body was returned. Some knights would have been knighted that day. Some knights with no names, not known. And some of the foot soldiers who had come to assist, who were all killed, they would have all been put in the burial pits here.
So the lords, those that weren't repatriated back home, such as Gloucester, they would have been taken from the field and buried on consecrated ground.
Yes.
So they may have perhaps been taken to Cambus Kenneth, perhaps the St Ninians area, but the regular troops, they would dig pits here and they would go in there. And as you say, why would you move them any great distance to put them anywhere else?
It makes no sense. And even on day 2 or the aftermath of the battle, I've got a theory. Why get your own men to do it?
Absolutely.
They have fought a tough battle over 2 days. If I'd been Bruce, mostly I would have gotten the prisoners to dig those graves.
And of course we know there was a number of prisoners, because they said it was quite a spectacular sight to see the English who were on the crags of the castle. And indeed Bruce had got to the stage where he almost feared a second uprising. There were so many numbers of them there, but they surrendered. They had had enough of the fight. It would make sense to get them to dig the pits, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, most definitely. We also have to consider that the Carse of Balquidderock here is unlike any other carse in the area. What makes it an ideal camping ground for the English camp is that it's between the 2 streams, the Bannockburn and the Pell stream, and it has undulations in the ground because of the high water table that it has. So when water comes down from the dry field and it's drained into the Carse, there's water for the horses. It's ideal camping ground compared to the rest, which can be boggy. But if you were to search for the dead here now, you would probably have to go quite deep because of that underwater current that sweeps it out to the Forth.
So we're going down deep. It is the initial contact area. It's a great place for one of the pits.
I reckon 10 to 12 feet down from where we're standing are some of the dead.
And of course, as the rout took place and they were pushed towards the Bannockburn in the distance here, the second great carnage took place, didn't it?
That was the carnage.
Yeah.
That was where it said the Bannockburn holds the nameless and the faceless,
Yeah.
who will never know. Most were killed between the camp and the burn, and we're going to go and look at the great ditch
Shall we do that?
where all that bloody carnage happened.
Let's go and have a look. So we talked earlier on, Max, about the route, and this is the Bannockburn here. From the front line of the battle that we looked upon earlier, the Scots would have pushed the English over towards the Bannockburn here. And you can perhaps see the steepness of the banking and the depth of the burn here that they would need to try and get across. Now they would be doing that in an absolute panic. It would be carnage here, wouldn't it?
What a prospect for those people that did not know the landmark.
Aye.
They have come down here, which is treacherous ground already.
Yeah.
All around them, their comrades are being speared in the back,
Yeah.
axes coming down in their heads. And there are also knights who never fought on their horses coming down here. And this is pretty treacherous ground, and this is unchanged, really. That's not changed.
Yeah.
But as we see some of the deep twisting bends of the river here, these bankings, getting in here is one thing. Getting out of that other side is completely something else. It's a death trap, isn't it?
Well, the first people that fell here would create absolute gridlock, wouldn't they?
They would. The first ones in are going to be pretty much the unlucky ones.
Yeah.
They're going in, they're going to flounder in here. And if you're in here with horse and knights in armour and other people who your comrades are not your comrades anymore, it's pretty much every man for himself. So I'm clambering over you to get to the other side and vice versa. It's complete carnage.
And this water here, it's at least 5-6 feet deep. Steep bankings on this side. And as Barber said, there were so many people killed here, you could walk across dry shod.
Yeah, and in heavy, wet rain, after heavy weather, you're talking 10, 11 foot deep.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling, but you really have to be here to feel it.
Absolutely.
To get that sense of place.
You get a sense when you're here that you perhaps don't see in the camera so well, but these are very steep bankings, and considerable numbers of people would have been killed here. It wouldn't be tens, it'd be the hundreds and into the thousands would have
No
been
doubt
killed
about
here.
that. No doubt. This is the mass of the killing is between the camp and the burn.
Yeah.
And it's a formidable burn. When we think about a burn in Scotland, we think about a narrow piece of water a few feet wide and a few feet deep. This is something significantly different, isn't it?
And as you say, it's incised into the ground. It hasn't changed too much over the years. It's following pretty much the same course, bar one or two little loops. So this is what they would have seen back then, as you say, a bit deeper. But will we take a walk up the bankings and see where they would have taken the dead bodies and perhaps other burial pits?
And see the flight of the soldiers here, yeah. Yeah, you're not going to bury them down here. It's
No.
okay, I know what you mean. I could spend easily a long time here.
Here you can see Max making his way down from the flat level of the cars down towards the Bannockburn. And you can see him making his way down what is a fairly steep slope. And as he gets down to the banks of the burn, we'll give you some scale as to just how deeply incised the burn is within the cars. Now that level from where Max is now up to the flat level top of the cars is about 8 metres. As he makes his way along the banking there, you can see that that burn hasn't changed course much in all those hundreds of years, because it's unable to do so. And there Max going to make his way back up another 8 metres onto the flat level of the cars above. So we've come from the Bannockburn back up onto the higher cars here, Max, and they would have brought the bodies away from the burn, wouldn't they?
Most definitely. They're going to drag them out there.
Yeah.
They're going to loot them.
Yeah.
They're going to see what they've got in them: weapons, armory, money.
Yeah.
But they're not going to dig. This is day after the battle. They're not going to dig on a slope. They're going to bring it up here where the digging's easy.
Yeah.
And of course, this field here is strewn with so many dead from that day before, because they were pushed back into the burn.
Well,
so it makes sense that
absolutely,
put the
because
pits here.
the route took place right over here,
Yeah.
down towards the burn where we've just been. It would have been panic and confusion, lots of bodies scattered around. And they wouldn't have taken them too far, as we've said. So within the area of the Bannockburn here, we're looking at other pits.
Absolutely. That maybe even 2 to 3 pits here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes sense. You're not going to carry them anywhere over what is now the modern A91 into the cars.
Yes.
You're going to bury them where they fell.
Yes.
And most of the elite knights have been killed in the first part of the battle.
Yeah.
Who is escaping here along with the infantry and foot soldiers? It's mind-boggling what they actually went through here. But you'd have been tripping over bodies and horse here.
Absolutely. Now there's an interesting story about one particular character who was found the next day and introduced himself to Robert the Bruce, wasn't there?
This character has the experience this man has. He keeps cropping up in our history. He fought at Stirling Bridge.
That's right.
And he's been in numerous other conflicts, but he was found hiding in one of the bushes. And of course he was found and taken to King Robert the Bruce, who embraced him. That is Marmaduke de Twing.
Quite a character.
Quite a character. And of course his accounts
Yes.
to Guisborough are very important. He gave great accounts of what happened in Scotland's history in their fights with the English. But he survived another battle, hasn't he?
And of course that showed Bruce for the man that he was too, because he showed great magnanimity to Marmaduke, didn't he? Treated him well.
He treated him well. He dined with Bruce that night, and what's more, Bruce sent him away with gifts.
That's right.
So he's come up to this battle. He's been on the losing side. It's been a massacre.
Yeah.
That Scotland have won the day, and he goes away with souvenirs brought up by his own army, and he goes away with mercy and his life intact. So Bruce was obviously very fond of this man, but it just shows you, Bruce openly wept over the body of Gloucester at Cambus Kenneth. They were cousins. Even though Gloucester's only 24 years old, Bruce would have known many of these people. Apart from the joy that has come with victory, there's a great heavy heart and sadness.
Absolutely.
On Bruce's behalf when he looks at the people that he's lost.
Because there is some kinship there.
Of course there is. As well as the sadness from the people in his own army.
Absolutely. Well, we've had a great view, a great look around. We're back on the cast. We've looked at various areas where the pits could be in the vicinity of the Bannockburn and towards the front line. Shall we go back over there?
Yeah. I think highly likely once you get onto the flat ground here, coming up from the slope from the Bannockburn, to create immediate burial pits.
Yeah.
And bring the bodies and horses alike over into them. But yeah, let's go back to the main cars.
And just to emphasise though, there has been very little serious study done here to find those burial pits. There's been little bits of study done from time to time, but nothing on the scale that would allow us to find these and determine once and for all exactly how the battle unfolded. So it would be great if we could move in that direction.
Nothing in depth has really ever been done, and that includes the more commercial studies that have been done of the area. But there's so much under here. I'm not saying it would be easy to find.
Yes.
And it's very hard to locate specific locations of burial pits.
Yes.
But they're here.
Yes. Okay, let's head back to the beginning. here we are, Max, back where we started in front of the knoll, back down on the karstlands here, and Robert Baston mentioned about the carnage that took place that day, didn't he? One of the English chroniclers.
Baston can be frustratingly, it tells us so little, but what he does tell us depicts the horror and what I believe that he was suffering at the time, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Absolutely.
He spoke about the bodies were stripped and looted, but the battlefields are looted, and the bodies are stripped naked. People that he perhaps knew or got to know on the way up here, he's wandering around here disorientated. He's in shock.
Absolutely.
And the most are dead or the wounded are being killed. And after the prominent people of society are taken off the battlefield, the burial pits are dug for the rest of them. The sight of naked body on top of naked body, and the pits include the horses.
Absolutely.
But why wouldn't they not? They would not dig extra pits for that. That just depicts the horror of medieval warfare.
It was brutal. And as you say, the Scots would have stripped the bodies, they would have plundered the field for recyclable arms, nothing would go to waste. And of course the booty and the plunder was part of the spoils for the victor. But as you say, Baston lays it out quite plain. He was in a state of shock and he was beside himself with grief when he seen particular dead English knights here, wasn't he?
Yes, and I think why his writings, why his chronicle is so frustrating, he's writing that under pressure. He'd already written something up.
That's right.
Under Bruce's orders. He's made to do it again. And it's a very emotional writing. It doesn't give us a lot of information other than the shock state that he was in.
And that comes across loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
And where we stand, the naked bodies of the dead English soldiers are under here somewhere.
They are under here. They are under here. They will be deep down again due to the water current. But the pit from the opening of the battle on day 2, we're in that vicinity right now.
Well, thanks for joining us, folks. I hope that's given you an insight as to what took place down on the karstland at the Battle of Bannockburn. If you've enjoyed what you've seen today, like, subscribe and share this amongst your friends, as Max and I, this is our passion as we go through the process of learning about the battle, and today it was about finding the pits. Where were the pits of the dead?
And also, if you have any thoughts yourself, we would be glad to hear them. We are always learning, we have open minds, and we would love to hear your thoughts. This is your history as well as ours, so it would be great to hear from you.
So take care, and we'll catch you in the next film.
Pleasure, Mark.